Hi, and welcome to the class today. We're going to be talking about a standing pose, Parsva Konasana, and we're going to break it down into three really important instructions that you can use to improve this pose and to learn a lot about the pose, and then maybe discover things that you can use for more advanced poses. So it's a really, really great class. We're going to do a quick overview of the pose, and we're going to look at the components. And then make sure you stick around to the end because we're going to put it all together using a really incredible way of learning this aspect of the pose. So if you haven't watched the two previous classes, they're not necessary for this class, but also very relevant because in this pose, in this standing pose, we do use a lot of the twisting concepts that we learned in that class. So how to keep the pelvis tucked and how to maintain that lumbar curve in the lower back. So all those things apply for this class as well. I've linked them in the description below. So if you would like to take a look at those classes before or after, just to learn that aspect of the pose, that would be great also. So it's kind of like a nice continuation in these things that have been learning. Okay, so we're going to start out the class by sitting in a comfortable position. So find a comfortable position. If you want to sit in the chair, go ahead and sit in the chair. And close your eyes. And take a few breaths here. Make sure that you are sitting in a comfortable position so that your back isn't hurting, so that you can take a deep breath. So if you need to sit on the block, go ahead and sit on the block. And sit in a position that you are able to lift the chest without any strain. So when you take a deep breath here, make sure that you close your eyes and you're going to release any tension in the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And it's probably the thing that I repeat the most in these classes, but it's most important. And actually, you can do this anywhere. So you can practice this throughout your day. So close your eyes, release any tension in the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And on your next breath, I want you to notice the space in the ear. So if you take a breath, start noticing what that means to maintain the space in the ear. So you're not bulging the ear out and you're not, adding any tension in that inner ear area. So we're going to use that in this practice as well. Okay. So after you're taking a few breaths, we're going to go ahead and get into the pose, and we're going to start taking a look at the different components of this pose, and mainly these 3 points that you can practice to improve the pose. If this is a very difficult pose for you, I've also linked in the description below different ways that you can build strength and flexibility in this pose using a chair, and it's very, very excellent the way that I learned the pose. I truly recommend it, but you can still try these aspects of the pose without being able to do the full pose, so don't worry about that. Okay, so coming into the pose, I'm going to grab some blocks here, and in this pose, we come into this position here, so coming with the feet pointing forward. And I'm always going to start with my right hand. So right foot turns out. And I'm going to just get into the pose and see what happens. So I come in and bend the knee. I come into the pose and I can use my blocks here. In the beginning, I keep my hand in front of the leg so that my knee won't come forward. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is step 1, right? So here's the pose. And then we bring the arm up. So we're going to look at all the components that allow you to practice this pose. So what I mean by the hand on the knee is I'll show you on this angle. So we come here on this Parsva Konasana pose, and sometimes the knee comes forward like this because of tightness in the inner part of the leg and the hips. So I want to make sure that my arm pushes my knee out so that it's not coming medially into the body. So this is the first thing we'll work on. Okay, to come out, you just come up and then you bring the feet back together and come to center. So what we want to discuss here is once you're able to do this a few times, we're going to do it with this concept in mind. So I'm going to grab a block and I'm going to place that block on my thigh. So what I want to understand is when I come down into this pose, we tend to really load the head of the femur. So you feel a lot of tension here in the groin, right? So this is a great pose for your hips, but we tend to really load the head of the femur here. And if you don't sense that, then purposely add tension there to the head of the femur and come down in that pose with this area very tight, very gripped. So what we want to do is we want to remove the load from the head of the femur, and we want to actually lower the middle of the thigh. So the way I'm going to have you feel this is grab a block and come down onto the block here so that you make sure that you remove the grip from the head of the femur and lower the middle of the thigh down. And bring your blocks here. Make sure you're not coming down on your thumb. So use a block. And if you can't feel it with this block, it's okay to grab a nicer, bigger block. So come into Parsva Konasana, feet facing forward, right foot. Turn the right foot out. Grab your block, place it in your thigh. And then use the weight of the body onto that block to bring the middle of the thigh down, removing the load on the head of the femur there. So once you're in this pose for a second, you start noticing that we add a lot of weight to the front foot. And so for this pose, the first thing that we'll be talking about is removing the load from the head of the femur and placing that load in the middle of the thigh. So once you start being able to feel that, we're going to transfer the weight to the back foot. So I'll explain how to do that. And then we'll look at the job of the shin. So we usually talk about knees not coming forward to the ankle. And in this case, I'll explain why that is so important in this pose to work with the shin. And then third, we'll look at the job of the arm. So at the end, we'll put all these different aspects together so that you can feel the pose working. So what is the mechanics of bringing the arm up? Okay, so come up, feet forward, feet together, and you do the same thing on the left side. So we're going to grab the block, place that block in the middle of the thigh, and come down. Even if you can come down here, you can also use a chair. I'll show you in a second, just so that you can feel if by placing more weight on the back foot, you can remove the load on the head of the femur and just feel the middle of the thigh releasing down. So this pose, when you come down on this pose, you're going to come down and you're going to have not the bottom, not the top, but for this exercise, the bone here will be parallel to the ground. So here, it's not parallel to the ground yet. As I'm able to come down, now it's a little bit more parallel to the ground. So that's what we want to get to. And then if my body can do it without the block, then I can remove the load on the head of the femur and press the middle of the thigh down. So try this a few times, whatever amount of ability you have to go into the pose. It's totally okay to come down as far as you can. So if you need to use a chair, we can come down here, use the chair, you can use the block, and remove the load from the head of the femur, push the middle of the thigh down. So this is a great way to do the pose too. And then come up. Okay, So now, the first point that we'll look at is the foot. So let me bring the computer closer. So here, when we look at the foot, we are looking at the fourth arch. So it's this arch here, okay, the fourth arch, which comes out of the second toe, okay? And we're gonna lift this arch, which means the outer edge of the foot, it's really going to dig into the floor. So if I have a wall, I place my foot here against the wall and I give it a little bit of an angle and I really press the outer edge of my foot into the floor and I lift the fourth arch. And then when I come into the pose, I make sure that I really push that heel into the wall, transferring the weight of the pose onto the back foot. So I usually keep my mind on the front. I want to transfer the weight to the back foot, lift the arch of the fourth toe, and come down into the pose. So let's practice that for a few minutes with both sides. So right side and then left side. All right, come up. Okay, so hopefully you're able to see the foot there. And in this pose, we usually always start with the right leg forward first. So work on your left foot, ground that foot, the outer edge of the foot into the mat, and practice the pose like that, and then do it again on the right side. So after we've done that, we're going to take a quick look at the arms. So this is a very quick overview on how to bring that arm up. So we're going to look at the relationship here between the arm and the side flank of the body. Okay, so what I'll have you do is grab a block or a bolster so that you can bring. So if I have my arm here, I'm going to put the block or my support right underneath the middle of the top arm right here. Okay, right there. So not on the armpit and not on the elbow, but in the middle. So I place the block here and I'm going to rest on the block. Okay, so I'm really stretching this side flank of the body. So all I want to show here is that the side of the body and your extending the arm are not two different things. So I can move this arm just by moving it around the shoulder socket here, right? And just move it up. It's a whole different story if I'm not only lifting the arm, which is important, but I'm learning how to lift the arm by extending the side flank of the body. So if this is really short, it's going to really impede the movement of my arm here. Right, so try to remove the length. So if I can lengthen the arm by lengthening the side of the body from the pelvic floor, I'm going to get much, much better ability to receive that lift. Okay, so I can, like if I start like this and I put the block, I'm working on the length of the side of my body. So that's a good exercise for that. But for this demonstration, I'll just rest my head here so that you can see. So then I'll remove the right arm. I'll put the right arm behind me. Okay, it looks like this behind me. Okay. So my right arm is behind me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to really slowly turn the palms up. So I'm externally rotating my arm. And I'm going to lengthen the arm as much as I can, keeping the integrity. So I'm not trying to pull this out of the socket. I keep the integrity of the shoulder here. But I lift the arm, lift, 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 lift. And here I start feeling the roll of the side of the body and how I can extend the side flank of the body and lengthen that arm from the pelvic floor. So it's not just, a lazy movement on the arm coming up. but it takes the whole side of the body to move that arm up. All right, so try that a few times. You can lay down using the kind of variation of Anantasana where you're really stretching the side of the body, or you can rest your head and really work with slow movements, learning this connection between the arm and the side of the body. So if it's really, you have a really tight side here, when you're bringing the arm up, that's gonna, that's gonna prevent you from really receiving that lift down from the pelvic floor. So give that a try on both sides. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that. And so I hope that you are enjoying it so far. So number one, we saw how we are not going to load the head of the femur while coming down. We're going to use a block, and we're going to learn how to have the middle of the thigh come down. So grounding the femur from this middle of the thigh here coming down. So we really release the grip onto the head of that femur. Then we're going to look at, just took a look at the importance of lifting that fourth arch, the fourth toe arch, and really pressing the outer edge of the foot into the mat and transferring the foot to the back leg. Then we saw the relationship between the arm and the extension here of the side flank of the body, and how to, instead of lifting, extend and lengthen the arm from the pelvic floor, make that connection between arm and pelvic floor. So we're really lengthening the arm. And now we're going to take a look at the shin and a little exercise that we can do in this pose to really put all of those three things together. So here we go. Okay. So for this, I'm going to use a chair. So bring a chair, or anything. You'll see how this works, and you can modify it with what you have. So let's take a look here. So I'm going to also grab my support if I need that for the front to rest my hands. So I come back into the pose here. So first I start out with both feet facing forward. And this is kind of a geometry here. There's not a prescribed length in between the feet. So you really have to see how it works in your particular body. And I want the chair against a wall so that it doesn't move. So if I had another wall here that I could push my heel into, that would be great. If not, I just really remember how important the back leg is in a yoga pose. So not forgetting the back leg. Lift the toe, the arch of the fourth toe, and dig the outer edge of the foot into the mat. So really anchor the back leg very strongly. Then, without loading the head of the femur here, I'm going to bend the knee and transfer that weight by grounding the femur of the leg, not by loading and creating tightness or gripping in the head of the femur. Then I'm going to come over to my chair and start adjusting. So if I'm too close, I'll notice. So I want to come to the place where the bone of my leg here is parallel to the mat. So I'm not here, not there. If this is all you can do for now, that's fine. You can work like that and explore here. If you can come all the way down where it's parallel to the mat, then go ahead and do that. So I want to come forward a little bit. I want to get to the place where my knee is stacked on top of the heel. And we hear a lot about this, how this is a safe way to do a pose so that you don't injure your knee, but there's a lot more to that. So let's see why it really is important here in this pose or in this exercise. So I don't want to be pushing into the chair, and I don't want to be losing contact. I want to be barely touching. So if there's an alarm every time I come out, it would sound. Okay, so there I'm barely touching, and I can use my support if I need it. Okay, so here is the trick. While I'm barely touching the chair, so I'm not resting any weight into the chair, just keeping that contact, maintaining the contact, I'm going to bring my leg to horizontal. So once I do that, transfer the weight as much as I can to the back foot, so I'm not resting on my thumb. Okay, add more if I want to now. Okay, and I'm going to bring my foot back about an inch so I can lower my sit bone. When I lower my sit bone, when I move that back foot back, I lose the contact of this leg to the chair. So I'm going to bring the computer closer so that you can see. Okay. So here I am positioning myself so that when I come to parallel horizontal here with the ground, that I am barely touching. So I'm not pushing the chair in any way. I'm just touching here gently. So now that I am fairly horizontal here, I'm going to move my foot back out there about an inch. So a little bit. So I move the foot back. When I do that, I make sure that I don't lose contact with the chair here. And I lower the sit bone a little bit more. So the sit bone came down. So now, without moving the foot and without losing the contact, I lift the sit bone. Okay. So let's try that. I'm going to try it on the other side to show you. Give you a better angle. And that gives you a sensation in the hips where you really feel the pose. Okay, so here we go. So this is going to allow you to bring your arms up to connect the pelvic floor to the arm movement in this pose. So here I'm tucking this side, making sure that I tuck this side more so that I can twist. And this is what we did in the videos previous to this one. So I come here, I touch the knee to the chair, and I bring my leg to a horizontal position. Okay, once it's a horizontal here, then I bring the foot back an inch so that my sit bone drops. Okay, when the sit bone drops, I make sure that I don't lose contact here, and without moving the back foot or the contact, I lift, and that gives me the connection to bring my arm up. So it's work. All right. I'll see if I can show you one more time. So this is the work of the pose. So it's very intense. It's a lot of work to bring that. So you keep doing that. You keep bringing the back foot out a little bit more, further away, keeping the contact with the chair. That lowers the sit bone. Without losing that distance, you lift the sit bone up. And then, of course, while grounding the femur down. So it's a great strengthening work, but also will teach you that connection between the pelvic floor and lifting the arm by extending the flank, lifting from the pelvic floor with that almost, that lift created by lengthening the space and lifting the sit bone. So let's do it one more time. And yeah. Okay, here we go. So if you need height for your hands, use it. Come into the pose here, so both feet facing forward. Turn the right foot out, give a little angle to the back foot, and come into your Parsva position. So here I'm fairly horizontal, the bone of the leg, if I can imagine. Remove the load from the head of the femur and really ground here in the middle of the thigh, ground the femur down. So that always remains. Then I'm going to maintain that contact between the chair and the knee, and know that you will lose this. So keep an eye on that. Put the load of the weight onto the back foot, lift the fourth arch, and come into the pose here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm grounding through the femur here, through the middle. I'm going to lower my sit bone by bringing my heel out, scooching it out about an inch. So now I lowered the sit bone. I kept the contact with the chair. So I can feel that I'm pushing the chair a little bit. So don't push the chair, just maintain that very, very soft contact. And now lift that sit bone without losing contact. Okay, and then you can really extend the arm from the pelvic floor. All right. I hope that you guys can see the work that it takes to put all of these ingredients together and create a really wonderful Parsva Konasana. Okay, let's do it again on the other side. And we'll go through this again. So feet facing forward. This is my left side. Turn the left foot out. Bring the heel out. Give yourself an angle on the back foot. Okay. Here you can bring yourself into the pose. So here I have to adjust, come forward. Make sure that I'm just touching the chair very gently. So don't load the head of the femur here. Ground the femur down from the middle. So here I'm grounding the femur. Come down to the pose by really anchoring the back leg. So anchor the back leg, make the outer edge of the foot very heavy. All right. Now, I have fairly horizontal space here. Thigh to floor. My shin is touching the chair very, very, very gently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this sit bone here by moving that foot back. So move the heel back up, and I lost contact. So come back without losing contact to the chair. Move the heel back. Lower that sit bone. Now, without losing contact of the chair or without moving your heel, lift the sit bone and then extend the arm from the pelvic floor. Lengthen the arm, lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. Okay, so to come up correctly, very important, anchor the back foot even more and come up by anchoring the back foot, not by adding more weight into the front foot. All right. And then go ahead and do a downward dog to just release any stress in the pose. So when we worked with the ears in the beginning of the class, make sure that after you start doing this for a few times and you start gaining the strength to do this work, make sure that you don't disturb that space in the inner ear while you do this exercise. All right. So here in downward dog, the same concept applies for the arms. So really you're lengthening the sides of the body and you're lengthening from the pelvic floor all the way through the arms. So maybe I can show you in this pose and you'll be able to see. Here's downward dog where you just extend the arm. And let's try to do a downward dog where the stretch comes from the pelvic floor, stretching the flank of the body and the arm as one thing, not as two separate things. So here, really working on lengthening the whole flank of the body. Here we go. Through downward dog. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the class and that this is a fun concept to work on. It definitely adds a whole new dimension to your Parsva Konasana practice. I hope that you like it. Leave me a comment below if there's any questions. If you'd like to subscribe, it really helps me to get the word out and to spread these videos. So I would appreciate that. But I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching.